decided you want a Nike Phantom GX2 or Luna 2, but should you splash the 260 plus euros for the Elite version, take the Pro for 160 euros, or go with the Academy version that starts at 85 euros? Well, while I can't exactly make that decision for you, today I'm gonna go through all of the boots, tell you what's up with them, how they compare, how they're different, to hopefully help you decide which of these is the right version to get on unisportstore.com. So let's go. But we can start with the Elites that, as usual, come with all the bells and whistles. The big feature here is obviously the grip knit forefoot and midfoot that has been made up with a combination of individually coated yarns that offers this really almost spider web-like grippy sensation on the ball. And then there are also some so-called high tenacity yarns in there that offer a bit of balance to the grip, but also provide some structure to the upper. Then of course you also have your fly knit tongue area and heel part, where you have a relatively well-fitting heel. It's got a little bit of width to it, and it's also got a nice plush inner liner to really hug your foot. Then on the bottom of both the GX and the Luna 2, you have the Cyclone 360 outsole here, which, as you may know, has been made to reduce the risk of injury, especially to your knees, but also of course to aid acceleration and changes of direction in the forefoot area. Accelerating, that's a new one. That's when you really push off hard. And what the Elites do so well, for me at least, is to offer this combination of a very, very soft upper that just fits as if you've worn the boots for months and months. And then of course this very unique sense of grip that might be one of the best new features of innovation that I can remember, at least in the last many, many years, in the sense that it just offers this constant, ever-pressing feeling of, I wouldn't call it a natural grip, but it's almost like an amplified, grippy version of a natural feel on the ball, and it feels really, really good. The fit in the boot, I would say, is very democratic in the sense that it really follows the shape of your foot very well and will also accommodate even for wider foot shapes. And because the upper is just so stupidly soft, it feels like a sticky pair of socks that just fit. And in that sense, you could say that the GX2 carries over many of the things that worked and also didn't work from the GX1. Plus, it's lighter too, which is always nice. And then there is the Pro, which, I'll be honest, I was a little bit skeptical about before seeing it, at least, because last year's GX Pro was a decent boot by all accounts, but just had absolutely nothing to do whatsoever with the GX Elite. And that kind of still applies on the GX2 Pro. At least in the sense that you won't get any of that grip knit magic. But to be fair to Nike, I mean, they've gotten closer. See, the GX Pro here feels like what the GX2 Elite would be, but without the grip knit. Ish, because there are a lot of other differences that I'll get back to, but you get the point, right? And what Nike have done here is to still offer you a fly knit tongue and heel construction, which feels really, really similar to that on the Elite, and that's quite nice. And then they replaced the grip knit upper with a regular knitted upper, which, I mean, it's soft, but I don't think it is actually fly knit, even though it says right here on the outside of the boot. It feels a little bit more flimsy, but still it offers you some of that really soft and sock-like sensation around your foot. And again, to be fair, it won't get anywhere close to that soft, malleable wow factor of the grip knit on the Elite, but it's still rather soft, and after you break it in, it actually becomes rather impressive how it just molds around your foot. So just show it a little bit of patience and it will at least taste a little bit like the Elites from a fit point of view. On two things you need to know about the fit. One, they are a bit tighter in the midfoot compared to the Elites. And also what I like is that the collar doesn't bunch up like it does in the Elite, which is good. But no grip knit, no body. That's a bit harsh, but you don't get the same sticky sensation from the knit on the Pro, obviously, as you do with the grip knit. But with that said, Nike have tried to replicate at least that molded texture that you get on the Elites. And it's definitely there. Of course, it's not sticky, so it doesn't have anywhere close to the same effect, but you do get this slightly more tactile feeling of having some sort of texture on the ball, which I guess is decent. So it tastes like the Elites. The heel is also, it's a bit 50-50 really, because it's nice that you get the same cutout promo heel counter as you do in the Elites, but for whatever reason, the heel is quite a lot higher on the Pro, and also they've changed the foam liner, so it's a lot thinner. And it means that the heel feels a bit more loose, and just the back part of the Pro feels a bit more chunky, I would say, which is honestly a bit of a shame. I mean, you know how to make it on the Elite, so just give it to us on the Pro as well. But it is what it is, honestly. In terms of the weight, the Pro is heavier, which is to be expected, and the same thing can be said for the outsole. When Nike have given us the Cyclone 360 outsole, it's not the same plate, which would have been cool, but you still get the same stud shape and configuration, which I guess is nice enough for the money. And actually, that's a key word for the Pro, for the money. Because while I do think that Nike could have made the Pro a bit nicer in terms of how streamlined and the shape of the boot without having too much extra cost or extra hassle, I do think that for the money, it's actually rather good in replicating some of the DNA from the Elite. Again, it tastes like it. And that, I think, is pretty good. And it's definitely a better Pro in terms of replicating the Elite than last year. And then we arrive at the Academy versions, which start at 85 euros for the GX2 and then 95 euros for the Lunar 2, which I have here. And that's a bit more than half the price of the Pro, which, you know, as expected, definitely shows on the materials. But what Nike have done here is it seems to give you some sort of knitted or mesh base on the upper, and then they've slapped a thicker synthetic on top of it, meaning that, I'll be honest, it does feel a little bit plasticky initially, and I wasn't that impressed with it. But to be fair, to their credit, when you get it on foot and when you break it in, it does feel a lot nicer than I had actually anticipated, because you do get a brushed inner liner that feels okay. It's a rather democratic fit, meaning that it's pretty wide throughout the boot. I would also say that the heel, while you don't get that cutout as you do on the Pro and the Elite, so it doesn't feel anywhere near as nice, the foam liner isn't also the best, but it's good enough, and it hugs your foot rather well to the point that I'll allow it. And given the fact that the upper, again, once broken in, softens up pretty well and doesn't have any significant pressure points, at least for my foot, I think that the fit in the Academy is actually a lot better than I anticipated when I just got the boots in my hand. And that's a solid thing. But let's not beat around the bush here. If you think you're getting some cheap Elite-like action with the Academy, you're not, by any stretch of the imagination. And I think it's nicely exemplified here with the collar, with this neoprene-like mesh material that's on the loose, flaccid side, and I don't really see the point of it. But then again, it's never really in the way either. Then there's the heel, which is weirdly high and almost feels as chunky, maybe even more chunky actually, than it does on the Pro. That's a bit of a letdown, but it is what it is. I guess the outsole seems to be the same as on the Pro, which is cool, I guess. And then of course you have a slightly thicker feel on the ball with the upper. It's still relatively low and pointy, which is nice. And it does have that molded texture as well, which gives this lightly tactile sensation on the ball. Again, nowhere close to that of the Elite or the Pro for that matter, but it tastes like it. And I guess the redeeming feature for the boot is that it feels better than it looks, which is also good because it looks quite cheap. And I know Nike are trying to cut down costs on the Academy, but they also cut down on the length of the laces to the point where it's a bit hard to tie them. Was that really necessary for, you know? But the thing is that if you want the GX and Luna magic, you kinda only get it for real on the Elite boots. And while I definitely think that the Pros and Academies are decent boots and can hold their own pretty well against some of the other boots in the price category, I would personally do whatever I could to get my hands on a pair of Elites. If you want the Phantom magic, this is where the wow factor is. I'm just saying. But no matter which of the boots you want, you can of course buy them in the link to your favorite neighborhood boot pusher, Unisport, in the link right over there. Of course also, if you haven't subscribed to the channel yet, with the notifications on, what are you waiting for? Get to it, subscribe to the channel, and then if you want more boot videos, click the playlist right down there. With those words, I'll be signing off. Cheerio.